Hello. In this video, we will discuss about metaphor in design. Metaphor is a mechanism of analogy in which a concept that belongs to a certain conceptual domains in terms of another conceptual domain is conceived, and in which correspondence between the attributes of both domains are established. We speak about source domain and target domains and the mapping across them. Uh, it means that the metaphor is a part of the analogy. It's consists of the source and the target. Okay, you can see here the source domain can be any object that we associate with the target, okay, that have some similarity on the form or shape. Okay, we establish the attributes or the characteristics, and the same characteristic, okay, after we establish, then we apply in the target. Okay, successful metaphor rely on the unlikeness of things, not upon their likeness. The characteristics of an effective metaphor is borrow an image from another schema of idea and apply it to another previously unrelated schema. Okay, 40 to 1000. It means that the characteristic of the source, okay, the characteristic of the final object we borrow from the source. Okay, successful or not is depends on how creative we apply the characteristic. Okay, metaphor are not just a matter of language, they are also a matter of thought and action. It is quite natural that visual metaphor prevail in architecture since it is a visual art. Designer creative ideas are usually in the form of object or image in their minds, and they cannot be easily verbalized. Okay, the language of architecture or designer is a form of uh, image or object. Okay, so more unique. Okay, we transform the idea, which still consider on the practicality or on the functional, so make the project become more successful. Okay, metaphor become a bridge of communication when architects or designers speak to each other. Okay, the English words metaphor derived from the 16th century Old French word metaphor, which come from the Latin metaphora, carrying over, means, and in turn from the Greek metaphora, transference of ownership, from metaphor to carry over to transfer, that, and that from meta behind along with across, pharaoh to bear or to carry. Okay, we see the words here, the carrying over, okay, or transfer, carry over. That's mean from the source to the final object. In architecture, it is a style of architectural language that brings, transfer, and translate the metaphor of an object into design so that it will give rise to various perception, perspective to practitioner. Okay, you can see here some statement from this scholar, okay, Cinder and Anthony J. Cantinis. Identify possible patterns of parallel relationship by looking at their abstraction. Okay, identify possible pattern. Mean here, for the source, we have to identify, we have to elaborate, we have to explore. Okay, segment it. So we understand in details of the source object. Okay, Geoffrey Bomband's metaphor in architecture is one of the methods of creativity that exists in the scope of design planning. Okay, Antonia Day, metaphor in architecture is a way of understanding something by describing an object with another object and trying to see one object as something else. Okay, the principle in metaphorical, okay, trying to transfer information from one subject to another, trying to see a subject as if it were something else. Okay, we look at something, then we try to imagine if that object become another something else. Okay, replacing the focus of research and other focal or research space. Okay, replacing focus of the research. Bring that object to another object. Focus to the object, bring to another object. Okay, the metaphorical category, the spelling error here. The number one is the intangible metaphor. Okay, means a metaphor that cannot be felt or abstract. It cannot be felt, or it's abstract. It departed from a concept, idea, human nature, and values such as individualism, naturalism, communication, tradition, and culture. This one, the number one is intangible. The number two is tangible metaphor. The real metaphor, or literally, is real object that we can touch. Metaphor that depart from visual things as well as certain character specification of an object, such as a house is a castle or palace, eating the form of house like a palace, right? Eating in the form in the house like eating in the palace, something like that. Okay, this is what we call a tangible metaphor that we can relate straight away. Okay, number three is combined metaphor, is combination of categories 1 and 2 by comparing a visual object with another, which has similar conceptual value with the visual object. Can be used as declaration of planning creativity. Okay, the function of metaphor, it is possible to see a work of architecture from another point of view. Metaphor function, it's influenced the emergence of various interpretation of practitioner. We can see before, after this, from the same source of idea will interpret to a different form of final object. Okay, number three, is influence the understanding of something that is then considered to be something that cannot understand or has no meaning at all. Okay, it's influence the understanding of something that is then considered to be something that cannot be understood. Okay, but by the analogy, we'll make the people understand. Okay, number four, can produce architecture which is more expensive. Okay, the narrative behind the design, the architecture. Okay, the interpretation of metaphor make the design more expensive. When to use it? When the design has value related to history, art, culture, whether things or non-object that are contextual and needs to be accentuated. Okay, number two, when the design is intended as a figure or monument. Number three, when the design aims to visionary or entertains. Number four, when the design is dominated by aesthetic when compared to be functional. Okay, this is